what do we actually do when we have this dread? Because we can sit there and just feel the dread on, let's say, a Sunday afternoon or a Sunday evening. And the thing is, if we don't do anything about it, it starts to get worse. It starts to get normal. It starts to become something that we're good at. It starts to become something that we are expecting, perpetuates the idea that it's very normal to not like work and to see work as like a evil necessity and something that we didn't choose to do. We're actually teachers. We signed up for this job. We took this job. We applied for this job. And every day we're like, yeah, let me do this job. And if we are experiencing dreads before the week, we are basically saying there is something happening during the week that I am not excited for, afraid of, I am worried about in advance before it actually has happened. If we look at the definition of what is actually dread, dread is a very intense feeling of anxiety or worry. And it's always about something that may or may not happen in the future. So we project our ideas, our imagination, and we imagine something that can happen in the future. And instead of feeling bad when it happens, we are just preparing ourselves by feeling bad now. It's this human function of the brain that I'm sure from the point of evolution makes total sense. But now that we are not busy constantly surviving, we don't need this. We don't need to constantly feel this dread. The more we practice doing the steps that I'm going to teach you now, the easier it is to actually get some control over it and to just, kick it to the curb. But we need to make sure that we understand what it is, when it shows up, what the consequence is if you don't deal with it. Because if you don't deal with it, let's say, and I gave you the example of the Sunday that I had before my internship, every Sunday I would go buy a bottle of wine with my friend and we would drink. And we have found it very normal to dislike our internship, to dislike our job. And the idea was that on a Sunday night, we would at least feel better about it, but it actually made our week, the start of the week, so much worse because we would start on Monday with a hangover, would feel, as if the weekend couldn't come fast enough. And it just repeated that idea that the outside world had power over us, right? We would go on to start the week, we would go to work, and then we would feel those negative emotions that we already had felt before on a Sunday, but we didn't want to experience. So then during the week, I would feel all these negative emotions. And then on the weekend, we would be like, oh, I felt so many negative emotions. Now I need to drink it all away. The worst, and it's not necessary. What we need is to be a bit more mature about our lives and say, listen, the outside world is not that powerful. The outside world doesn't give us a little cup of desperation, or my friend doesn't give me a little bit of a sprinkle of happiness. That's not how it works. We create our own emotions. And same with dread. We create the dread. It is all in our minds. And it is like imagination, but the sour tone instead of the beautiful things that we can do with our imagination, with our creativity, we let our creativity go wild and we imagine the worst things possible. So, when we're experiencing this dread, we need a little bit of discipline. We need to take ourselves a little bit by the hand, like an adult taking a child by the hand and say, all right, no more. We're not doing this anymore. So, you need some discipline to actually realize and acknowledge that this is the emotion that you're experiencing. The first step really is to slow down, pause, recognize, and name the emotion. And I like to imagine it as a uninvited guest that keeps on knocking on the door. Like you can't really get anything done because there's constantly this sound of somebody at the door. You don't want to have this person there. You didn't invite them. It's very inconvenient, But you have to do something with it because this uninvited guest is at the front door, it keeps on knocking. So you might as well open up the door, welcome this uninvited emotion in so that we get some authority over it. Because when we dismiss it, or when we hide it, or when we run away from it, or drink it away, we don't actually hear the message, what it is trying to say. So, for example, this would be on said Sunday, I would sit there for a minute and really sink in the emotion of dread. I am dreading tomorrow. I am dreading the next week. I am not looking forward to what the next couple of days have in store for me. Because unfortunately, the emotions that we're experiencing are just little pings, little messages from the mind saying, this is what's happening in the brain. And when I invite in dread and I sit it down and I say, fine, tell me what is up, it just starts telling me that I am afraid of what might happen this week, or that I am worried somebody will start talking about this topic, or that I am feeling insecure about this task that I have to do. These are all such important messages, but because it comes with this discomfort, our first instinct is to like, no, 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 no. We are not feeling this. I don't want to feel it. No, thank you. So we leave this uninvited guest at the door and we're just sitting inside complaining. Ugh, ugh. But we have now invited this guest in and we have actually recognized that this is happening, that this is the emotion. We've actually named it. And I say welcome and accept it. You don't have to welcome it. It's like, oh, I'm so happy that you're here. But welcome it in a way where, all right, you are here. Have a seat. Show me what you have. What is it that you have come here to tell me? And by saying these things to yourself, you're actually making peace with what is right now. What is the situation? You're making peace and accept that the dread is here. Now, what is so important in this step is when you are listening and you are hearing the message and you're really taking a moment to look internally and say, what's up? What is happening? Why do I have this dread? You cannot judge what it has to tell you. That's not how this works. We are not some judges who say, this is right, this is wrong, this is welcome, this isn't welcome. We are opening the door and we say, well, this is it. This is what we have to deal with. So you have to make sure that you can listen without judgment, because as soon as there is judgment, there is no listening. Think of the same example with other people. When you're trying to tell them something and immediately they judge you for telling them something, there is no listening involved. What we want to do is really have the space, have the time, and have the emotional space that is free from judgment to hear the message, to hear what the dread is all about. Now, for a lot of people and for a lot of instances and moments, this may just be enough. Just the acknowledgement of this emotion for a lot of times, for a lot of people, like dilutes it, and 50% or more is already gone. If not, then you have some more work to do. The next step looks like just writing down what it is that you are dreading. So it can be dreading that you have to do this task. What is it about this task that brings up this negative emotion? Maybe you think you're not capable of doing this. Maybe you think it is too hard. Maybe you think the way you want to approach this task, other people will judge it. Whatever it is, you have to write it down. And for every answer, for every sentence that you give yourself, imagine a good friend telling you this. Imagine that one of your best friends is saying, look, I have this task to do. I don't know if I can do it. What would you say? I would say, well, you can try to the best of your capabilities. Yeah, but what if people don't like it? Well, what if people don't like it? They don't have to like everything you do. And immediately you get this sense of, oh, this is what's happening. And I wish I did this when I was struggling with my work, because I was dreading the week where people would tell me that I've done something wrong. Every time my friend would tell me that she made a mistake in her job, I was like, but that's the point of doing the job, to make mistakes, to learn, to grow, to experience, to, improve, evolve. But I didn't give myself that time to really listen to what that dread had to say. So there were no lessons for me to learn because I dismissed everything. I was like, no, 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 we're not listening to this. We are not experiencing this. So instead, I just drink a bunch of wine and forget that all this happens. And I didn't get better at this. I didn't develop myself. I didn't grow as a human. I didn't grow as an employee because all I would do was feel this negative emotion, and then drink it away. No, we are not doing this. Now that I'm a life coach and I know how harmless emotions are, because truly, truly, it's a sensation. And they're so incredibly harmless, but they come with a message. They have something to teach us. And every time I sit down and say, hello, tell me, what is it? What is a brain? What are we worried about? What am I afraid of? What is what I think is going to happen? I get so much more. I get so much more power. I get so much more information. It teaches me something about myself and about why I am experiencing this so that I can do something about it. Now, these steps, the sitting down, the listening, the non-judgment, and the writing out of all the things that you are dreading, you are worried about, you are afraid of, takes some discipline. And I'm saying discipline because discipline is not necessarily a very nice, wonderful emotion. It's a bit like how you would treat your students. It's like, no, no, no. We are not skipping out of this. This is important. This is something that you'll have to do. You don't have to like it. We are learning and developing and evolving. In order to do that, we have to sit down and experiencing the dread. So take that discipline and make sure that you like cultivate it as a skill to experience dread and then to just write it out until it kind of dissipates. And I always say pen and paper solves so many problems. Write it out, all the sentences, all the emotions that you have, all the thoughts that come up, all the little blurbs that your brain is like, yeah, but what about this? Yeah, but what about that? You write it down all, and then you get some authority over it. Once you all have this on paper, treat it as if you would advise your friend, your best friend, or somebody who you are, a guardian to, like somebody who you take care of. What would you tell them? What would you advise them to do? And stay with that. Follow that advice. That is how you learn to deal with dread. You can dilute it as soon as it comes up. Okay. All right. Let me have a look. Oh, what is happening? Wait, why are you off? Hello? Worrying light. All right. That is all I had to teach you about dread. Let's check some questions. Let's see if you have any comments. Feel free to raise your hand.